just before I answer your question, I think the end goal is to then ask the question, how are the systems protecting the consumers on the ground? Because right now you'd see that the burden is on the consumer,
Yes.
right? So as a consumer, if you have experienced, your data disappearing or your airtime disappearing, there's only one thing, unfortunately, that you can do, which is raise the issue with your operator in writing, as stipulated in the Communications Act. You write to you document what you have experienced, the timestamps, the airtime that was, that disappeared, the amount, and then you put it in writing to your operator to say that this is what I've experienced. How was that the case? Can you explain it to me as to how I lost that airtime, for example? Or you could also go to their home shops. They also do issue itemized bills. So perhaps maybe you could see how you utilized your airtime or your data. But if that's not enough, you could always write to them, and then they will give you a clear explanation as to what happened. And if by any chance, if you're not satisfied, you can then raise the issue or escalate the issue rather to the regulator. So as far as our frameworks are concerned, that is what an average consumer can do. But then again, we have to understand that not everyone on the ground knows that this is what they have to do, right? Not everyone is, knowledgeable about this process in place. That's why they resort to, social media. Some people are far in the regions, where connectivity is really, really hard. They only had their few $20 left and now it disappeared. So they stay in silence, waiting to get the next few dollars again to then recharge in attempt that they can then, subscribe to a certain data bundle. But the framework that we currently have in place, it's that you need to, raise the issue to the operator. If you're not satisfied, you then raise it to the regulator.
But this is not a new issue, as I've said before. And from a media perspective, we have approached the operators before and gotten answers like there's background apps that you have to switch off. And basically, it was always the consumer's fault because we didn't use our cell phones smartly. Do you think there's truth in that?
Yes, to a certain extent, of course. Background apps do play a role. System upgrades do play a role. And, it utilizes the data. No doubt, it utilizes the data. But then the conversation is around, airtime disappearing. And one way that we can, ensure that that is not the case is giving a consumer the option to opt in or opt out. Because we live in a modern world. So as soon as I'm connected, my phone will start updating, background apps are running, I'm getting notifications every now and then. So, the moment my data depletes and I have airtime left, tell me as a consumer that you have now depleted your remaining data bundles, your balance is 13 Namibian dollars. Do you want to top up, or should we continue billing you on your airtime? And then as a consumer, I will be aware. But as of now, for the most part of it, we are not aware, because if you and I were aware that our data bundles are depleted, what we would do is then, switch off our mobile data, and then up until such a time where we can then subscribe to a new data bundle.
Yes. It does seem to me a little bit disingenuous in the sense that I've always understood airtime to be one thing and data to be something else. And airtime for me is like being able to call somebody and maybe send an SMS. And data is what I use to access the internet. And that understanding comes from the service provider. Since the beginning that cell phones have been available in Namibia, that's how they've explained it to us. But now for them to treat both as one, and the money that I pay is suddenly interchangeable, it seems a little bit sneaky.
That's true. So with data, disappearing data, or often at times consumers say that the data is depleting way too fast or it's too slow. That's a quality of service issue.
Okay.
And then you'd find people complaining about disappearing of airtime. That's a consumer protection issue. So with the disappearing of data, the reason why it's a quality of service issue is because as stipulated also in the Communications Act, CRAN does provide, some sort of framework surrounding quality of service to ensure that operators are operating or are rather rendering their services out to consumers, and there is a requirement for that. So as consumers, we can't experience low connectivity or way too fast connectivity. And then with the disappearing of airtime, that's a consumer protection issue, because as a consumer, you are purchasing airtime,
Yes.
right, in hopes that you then subscribe to a certain data bundle that is being offered.
Yes.
But before you can even do so as a consumer, you're already being billed on your airtime, and
Yes.
that's the issue at hand. Consumers are not protected. Their airtime is not protected, and airtime goes a long way. It's just not $5.
I want us to zoom out a little bit more and look at the impact of our current digital landscape here in Namibia on social development. How do you think the situation that we are in Namibia is affecting the development aspirations of the country?
All right. Looking at Namibia, you'd see that we have a high unemployment rate,
Yes.
right? So if $20 disappear from, consumer's device, that's just not a $20. This is a job seeker who is perhaps refreshing their email
Yes.
every now and then, waiting to see an interview meeting, for example,
Yes.
invitation, or a business owner who is trying to, communicate with their customers, or even use mobile banking, or a student who's trying to submit an assignment. So the moment we have such discrepancies on the ground, right, it hinders, the progress of the country in terms of, digital transformation and digital inclusion. People then are excluded from participating digitally.
Okay. What do you think is the biggest weakness in terms of Namibia's current approach to consumer protection in the digital space, as far as mobile data billing is concerned?
Like I've mentioned, the framework that we have currently in place is very reactive. It only kicks in once, as a consumer, you have experienced the harm. And I think, to me, that's the biggest weakness. Because you can ask, are we then really protecting the consumer if we are only kicking in after they've already experienced the harm, right? So that is the biggest weakness. And my hopes is to then have that reformed, to have consumers protected right before they even experience the disappearance of airtime.
So would you advise a new institution, organization, maybe a office of government or some agency that is proactively protecting consumers, or how would you advise that the problem be addressed?
Not necessarily. CRAN is mandated to regulate the telecom sector, and even if we look at how other countries are doing it, the regulators would then kick in and say that, okay, consumers are complaining about ABC. How can we then, step in and ensure that operators are not, are not designing systems in a way that, consumers are having to complain every now and then.
Yes.
So it's really up to the regulator to step in, perhaps do the research, understand the current landscape, learn from our sister country, South Africa, and every other country that has mechanisms in place to protect consumers.
Okay, let's go back to you, Ms. Amutenya, and I'd like to find out what are your plans for the rest of the year in terms of your institute and your other work in this space.
All right, so my priorities are quite set up. So first is to ensure that I publish the policy report on mobile data billing transparency. So I will just work on finalizing the draft and then present it to the stakeholders. And after that, I publish it. And then for the remainder of the year, I'll just, continuously do research, not only on mobile data transparency, but also on the telecom sector widely, to see maybe what other issues are consumers experiencing, and how can we better ensure that the consumers are not experiencing some of those issues, and then also just look at how other jurisdictions are doing it, and then we can take it from there.
Do you think that the technology, especially communications technology, is it making the life of the average Namibian better, or is the average Namibian being excluded more and more? I'm asking that question in the context of our extreme income inequality, our very divided society. Are we leaving more and more Namibians further and further behind?
Not necessarily. Like, this issue is just, pertaining mobile data transparency and how an average Namibian can, participate in the digital economy. But as far as communications is concerned, widely, I think as a country we're doing quite well. We have programs in place that, educate ordinary citizens on how to, operate the computer, how to, search on Google, for example, to close that digital literacy gap. So if we have to look at it widely, I think we're doing good as a country. Of course, we can build on from there as well, because we live in a modern world where technology is increasingly developing. But pertaining now the issue of mobile data transparency, I think that's a gap that I've picked up, which also has to do with communication, if you think about it, just an aspect of it. And if we get it right, then I think we will be progressing well as a country.
You used a phrase that I find very interesting and intriguing, the digital economy. But that's exactly what I'm trying to get at. I suspect that most Namibians are not participating in a digital economy, because how do you earn money from digital anything? We can't even bill, in what sense? Who's participating in this Namibian digital economy?
The moment you take your device and, start browsing on social media, for example, or you tweet something on Twitter, or you partake in a conference call on Teams or Zoom, that's you partaking in the digital economy.
Namibia is a land of movement, with waves that never stop reaching forward. Here, adventure is not something we search for. It is something we are born into. In every corner of this country, creativity rises, from artists, from athletes, from dreamers. And when the world comes to explore Namibia, they discover something extraordinary. Because when sport moves people, creativity moves ideas, and tourism moves the world toward us. Something powerful happens. A platform where movement meets imagination, where industries connect, where opportunity grows, where Namibia's next chapter begins. Welcome to the Creative Sport Tourism Expo. Exhibit, partner, experience. Creative Sport Tourism.
Let's talk about your entity's endurance for the past 7 years, nearly, because 2019 to now is exactly that. That period saw COVID coming and going, and many other challenges, recessions and everything.
Yeah.
A lot of businesses collapsed on their faces.
Yeah.
But somehow you guys are here still standing for an entity that is pretty new.
Yeah.
What has been the secret to survival?
Okay. So if you look in one of our in our logo, there's what we call Limitless Insight Enduring Solutions, and the keyword being enduring. We started in COVID, and we were having a project with one of our clients, and we were required to engage clients at a time when nobody wants to see you face to face, but we had a contract, and we needed to find a way to execute that contract. So I would love to say around the period of COVID 2019, 2020, we grew our business for some weird reason. And one of the pushes in terms of getting us somewhere was the digital transformation that was happening in that period, because a lot of organizations were trying to go online, how to automate their businesses so that they can become more efficient or be able to see themselves giving services in a digital way. A simple solution that we worked with one of the clients was just e-signatures. You remember that time people were just sending signatures on paper. Now, getting executives to be comfortable to upload their signatures and then they sign and they are comfortable that it is actually legit. Those are some of the things that we're faced in dealing with. And I think through that process of surviving through a difficult period made us a very enduring company that can withstand all different cycles that the company goes through. They say statistically, a company needs 5 to 7 years to mature.
Yeah.
After that, it can survive a lot of storms.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And just also as an indigenous Namibian business,
Yeah.
what are the challenges that you face? Is it, for example, are you guys happy with the corporate tax regime of the country? Is it too exploitative? Are you allowed to, is there enough infant industry protection for entities like yours? Are you allowed to, are you just left to compete with these huge multinationals, or is there a special regime for locals to thrive? You know, just
The regime.
Yeah.
I think then if you, this is a statistics that's out there. Namibia doesn't have the best place to do business. That's statistically been proven, and I think the environment is good and bad at the same time.
Yeah.
The policies and the governing structures are great,
Yeah.
but what it also does on the other side makes it very difficult for a person that is starting up or trying to grow their business to actually move fast enough. You need to be compliant to this, you need to be compliant to that. If you, like, for example, working in the public sector and you are submitting a simple bid, you need about 8 or so certificates. Imagine how many SMEs and startups can actually maintain that level of compliance. Remember, some businesses is just 3 or 4 or 5 people. It's not 20 people working on these different types of certificates. And you need to make sure these certificates are up to date, and everything within that underlying sense of the certificate must be up to date. That's the other part. The other one is talent and the culture of the talent. I just saw a recent work done, very good work done by one of our industry players, Monaza Advisory. They did a study where they showed 19% of Namibians, young Namibians, 44% are unemployed, but 19% are unwilling to start a business. Now, to get the talent that is committed and willing to take that journey with you of growing and starting a business is another, what I call, hidden challenge that we are facing as a country. So there is a lot of multifaceted issues currently in the country that needs a coordinated approach on how to address. But I would say that let's create a platform to allow a Toivo or a Maria to start a business as easily as possible. Because I'm one of the believers that the state shouldn't be the primary creator of jobs. It should be the private sector. Every economy, whether like a state-controlled economy like China or any other state, you will see that the private sector is the one that creates most jobs, not the state. And I believe that when you create that platform to allow anybody to start and grow their business, that's where most jobs are going to come from. A simple tax regime that I would love to see happen in the country is R&D tax. If I'm creating a new product, and if I'm creating a new innovation, I must get a tax break to allow that innovation to grow. But when you already have your new product, you already have VAT that is getting onto it. So there is a lot of that can be done. And it's not only the state to work on it, but also the private sector to see how they can help the state in creating a much easier working environment.
Is it harder when it's when these entities are started by a young person? Maybe your wealth portfolio is not yet big, because sometimes you go to DBN or whatever, and you are required to have some collateral of some sort.
Yes.
But maybe you're just fresh from university, you studied abroad, you have these good qualifications and insights, and you just want to do business. Is it even harder for younger people to get into that space?
Definitely. Definitely, because the current, let me call it the economic, the fiscal structure of the country is designed for an established business. This is really the truth, yeah? In the sense that a lot of our financing instruments available are geared to an established business. Now you are coming with no collateral. You just have a great idea. Who is going to fund you? No one.
Yeah.
Because when you go to the bank, even the SME division, they have a KYC list of 20 things that you must provide them. And then they ask you, what's your collateral? I'm like, I just finished university. I don't have any collateral. My parents are not willing to give up their life savings for me, number one. Number two, they're not going to give their house as a collateral for my business idea. So what are you left with? So it is obviously a bit challenging. Hence you see that the government does try. If you are coming up with maybe you got a small job like a tender, the government can assist you with an upfront payment so that you can get started. But that doesn't happen anymore because of many issues that have happened with that model. So I would come to the point that for a young being, whether you are 18 to 35 or 40, for you to start a business, it's really not easy. The second part that makes it difficult is that your friends and family are also not supporting you. So I'm going to Toivo, Toivo, I have this brilliant idea. I just need 10,000 from you. And Toivo is like, what? What is that? That's not, the first thing is they'll say that's not going to work. Now you need to fight all of those difficulties to convince everyone around you to raise capital around and essentially start your business. Not just start your business, also maintain it. Remember, when you start the business, there's payroll that you must meet. So I think, it's definitely much harder.
Absolutely. For those that are watching and may be interested in calling you up, tell us a bit about your track record. What are some of the highlights? What are those things that you are proud of as lots to say, look, that project we really excelled. That is our highlight, our pride. If you can list whatever you can do.
I think I have to say to the country that to every viewer that is sitting out there, I would want to say we are the innovators and pioneers of what we call digital performance management system. We have our own engineered Namibian product that we developed around since 2018, 2019. And we have deployed that across about 5 or so local authorities that are using our performance management system. And one of the biggest transformation that we've done is a local authority called Kurenkuru. And we like to promote them because we are very proud of what they have done. Very small local authority. But that system alone has transformed the culture of that institution. They've created what we call a high performance culture, whether the leader is there or not. But that institution has essentially been transformed by our system. Another part that we say that for the viewer out there is that so far we have worked with probably 80 plus public institutions and state-owned enterprises. We are talking the biggest ones, Transnamib, Namcos, and all of that. And we believe one of our outputs or outcome has helped that organization move forward. And we have that track record of being able to operate in a very difficult and competitive space. As a Namibian company, our competition, the way we see, is not ABCD Consulting. Our real competition is Deloitte, KPMG, or whoever those are that are the multinational organization. That is the people that we actually compete and see ourselves as our peers. And we want the viewer or the potential client that's out there to be comfortable that they are working with a proper and professional company.
Absolutely. Where can you be found?
So we can be found in Windhoek. Our office is in Windhoek North. Our email is also available for contact. So we'll be able to share that with you guys if that's possible.
Please.
So
you can share maybe the number or email just for anyone to reach out.
To reach out to you. But we have our headquarters are in Windhoek North.
Okay. No, wonderful.
Good.
But it was a pleasure, man, talking to you. It's really exciting to see young people taking the next step and thriving in business. We hope our platform can only help really to boost your progress. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for just one final point for the viewer out there and the listener is that we believe in the mix of the old and the young. So anyone that is starting a business, mix it up. Because a Toivo with a gray hair and Maria with fresh from university. Together,
Yeah.
they make the dream team.
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you.